We are nearly 3 weeks removed from election night where Donald Trump walked away victorious, and still, even over the last week, we've been dealing with news updates about, still more counting going on in places like Pennsylvania. What the hell is going on out there? Well, today we have some information on that and some folks that were involved in it. We have with us Ron Coleman, who was down there monitoring some of the counts, and of course the great Mark Mitchell as well, to help maybe lend some thoughts as to what might be going on here.
Renegade Online.
Mark and Ron, you guys have been on the ground since the election. Ron, you've been working diligently in Pennsylvania. You've been there every day the last couple of weeks monitoring the recounts, or not the recounts, I should say, the continued
Well, no, the first
counting.
week was voting tabulation. The second week was recounts.
Okay, it was recounts. And Mark, obviously, you've been looking at the data. What are you guys seeing out there? Is there a change in tone here?
I think we tried this in a previous one, and Ron had just gotten off. There's this question specifically probably for Ron to answer if he could. What I can tell you from the polling is that people think overwhelmingly that our elections are rigged. But after this one, they're much more likely to say that there were problems in 2020 than in 2024. However, myself and many other people just looking at the outcome of this election, how the counts are still going, other bits of evidence that have been aired show that there are really big problems. And people that Trump has been talking about and have been part of his campaign have said that there's a new sheriff in town, there's accountability coming. Chris LaCivita actually said in regards to Pennsylvania, they will all be going to jail. I know Harmeet Dillon's been watching Arizona very closely. I know there's a lot of people who are saying that Trump is working on some kind of behind the scenes election integrity group. That's all I know. And I think we need it, some way to restore trust in elections in this country because they're shot. And Ron's probably got a better line than I do, so I would love to hear his answer.
Can we just real quick before Ron, you chime in, can we all just take a moment of silence to pray for our friend Nate Silver out there? Can we just take? I mean,
no.
Okay, no. All right, moving on. Ron Coleman.
Of the angel.
Yeah.
So it's like this. I was not, unlike in 2020 when I was in Philadelphia. In 2024, I was in Trump country, northern Pennsylvania, east, west, and central. And I think the lesson, I learned a couple of things there. One is that most people, Republican and Democrat, are normal people who want to do their job. They want to do things fairly. They want to do things, they want to do what they are responsible to do. They want to do it right. And they want to do it transparently. Mm-hmm. And that was refreshing to see. I also was exposed to a couple of different kinds of computer, digital voting systems. And they are, when they're not being manipulated, they're probably actually more secure than paper ballots. You have extraordinary digital paper trails for everything done with every vote, and where every vote comes from, how it originates. The problem is mainly with the entire institution of mail-in voting. That's a big problem, especially coupled with no ID voting. It's not, it's less the system than the the input, garbage in, garbage out. I also realized though that with all this counting in California still going on and in other states, what I saw in Pennsylvania was we have in our effort to create fairness and equity and make sure that every vote is counted, we have given up certainty with a very, very reasonable level of confidence in order to achieve a ridiculous level of confidence and thrown certainty within the amount of time that's politically and socially helpful for us out the window. So by the time the Pennsylvania count is over, you can really look at Pennsylvania and say, we've really counted for every vote. We've even gone through the trouble of counting votes of people who are too stupid to follow instructions. And that's a policy decision that has been made that is a stupid decision. And by the way, I'd like to come on here and say that it's a decision that favors Democrats because Democrats are so dumb. Guess what? I saw a great number of dumb ballot images voting for Trump. It's we have a low education. We've got a gigantic education problem in this country. I don't know if anyone's picked up on that. It is less important, really, to this is just my opinion. It's not a legal opinion, but we probably should focus more on getting it done fast and pretty damn well, as opposed to perfectly, and be in this position where election judges are assessing a voter's intent. And this is basically the electronic version of the hanging chads. Mm-hmm. If you can't follow instructions, if you can't do it right, your vote don't count. You blew it. We got to move on. Yeah. I think something else that we need to change is the lame duck period. What's going on now in the federal government is going to be horrific.
You're talking about approving judicial candidates for federal judgeships.
Yeah, I mean, so the Senate is an issue, but at least that is,
World War III is kind of a problem too.
Yeah, right. I mean,
yeah.
But that's the same problem we've had for the last several years, which is that we don't even really know who's making the executive decisions in terms of strategic issues. And
Ron, would you want to push back the election day, or would you want to push forward inauguration?
I would push inauguration forward, but I would also say that there ought to be a freeze on administrative rulemaking during the lame duck period, because that's what's going on behind the scenes, and very few people are even equipped, including myself, to follow it. But Biden and his people, besides from what I hear from many sources, including experts on government data standards, say that there's massive destruction of data going on, and there are all kinds of regulations and internal policies being promulgated that are going to be intended to make it almost impossible for Trump to. Having said that, Trump is so much better prepared to govern than he was in 2016. That it's not even going to be funny.
That's what it feels like. It really does. Like, I can't imagine the man making the same post-election mistakes that he made the first time. And like I've said before on this channel, I think the biggest mistakes he made was not firing damn near everyone the first time around, which he should have. But I do have a question for Mark, because I know, Mark, you might be a little short on time. You have observed some rather stunning statistics since Election Day. You talked about this on this channel leading into Election Day when you first started coming on, and then Election night, and then right after. But it seems like you have observed this pattern, or at least there is a bucking of the pattern that shows how the country shifted very much to the right on average, with the exception of, strangely, a few key places. Mark, I wonder if you'd like to talk about that a little bit, because I think this is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm just going to have to throw out a few things and then bounce to get on a radio. So I'm just going to heave this stink bomb over the fence. And I don't want to say anything to get this video demonetized. First off, the delays in counting are horrible, and Ron's absolutely right. It doesn't instill trust. People want their votes by massive majorities counted the day of elections. But there are a lot of problems. We talked about laundered money before into the elections, the amount of dark money that's coming into elections, the asymmetry, gerrymandering, the fact that the 2020 census might not have been above board, and all in all may have robbed Republicans of 15 to 16 seats, according to Seth Keshel. Then there's tons of other ones, like who paid for the mail trucks, what about the compiler in Arizona, blah, blah, blah. Many of those things need to be looked at, because ultimately what you wound up in is that Trump did have a mandate. He had over 6% of the country go from voting Democrat to go from voting Republican. But in just a few very defined places, he didn't get as much support, like 3 points in Pennsylvania, even less, I think, in the Rust Belt. And Fulton County, the Atlanta area actually went left. And all of the big blue population centers in the middle of the swing states basically stayed mostly the same, were only slightly moved to the right. Meanwhile, while you have New York and New Jersey right next door, went like 11 to 13 points towards Trump. So there's this really big trend of Republicans doing well everywhere, not getting anything down ballot, and then mysteriously, exactly where the Democrats need it, they do pretty well. And so I think that that's something that really needs to be looked into. I know that they're putting people together to do it. You know, a lot more analysis needs to be done. I think a lot of people will be looking at it. But Trump has a mandate, and now they're trying to rob him of it.
Mark,
on that note,
we just all need to admit that dead people in urban areas are very stubborn. They just won't change their mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.